Thank you, Laura. Actually, my presentation is now called Hand to Mouth, the face of low-wage work and economic security in Buffalo Niagara, but that's my fault. So, good afternoon. I think the turnout today is a testament of the salience of these issues and also how important it is for us to all get together. I'm really honored to be here. The UB Regional Institute, unlike the other examples you'll hear this afternoon, is probably most useful to community and neighborhood groups as a source of information and analysis and data for understanding and action. Our resources, which are all available online and also in print form, could be helpful, we think, for anything from simply understanding the context of the conditions in your neighborhood, for that matter, to writing a grant proposal where you need a data set. The topic that I'm going to present today is from a new policy brief. I've got too much going on here, I'm sorry. It's from a new policy brief. It's the wrong side. It's from a new policy brief that the Regional Institute just released this week. And the topic is the slice of the poverty picture that we would call low-wage work and economic insecurity. Workers at the low end of the wage scale, as you know, are ubiquitous in our communities. They fill every possible kind of job across the economic spectrum. And it's important, we think, to better understand what's going on. And we get into that story by talking about Steve and Sarah, a couple that is raising a family while both working with low-wage jobs. They each have a low-wage job. Steve, who is earning $25,000 a year as a pharmacy technician, that's the median wage for that job, and his wife, Sarah, earns $20,000 a year as a hotel clerk, also the median wage in Western New York for that job. Their circumstances are like that of 60% of the households that are 3 or more people in Western New York, which have at least 2 earners in that household, whether by choice or, in many cases, by necessity in order to make ends meet. With those 2 incomes, Steve and Sarah are managing to pay their monthly bills, together yielding an income of $45,000 a year for their family of 4. There is no cushion for them. Should either of them lose a job, should they or their children get an illness, a serious illness, should there be an unexpected major household expense, maybe on a day like today the roof starts to leak, they'll be in a fiscal crisis and they'll be forced to live on credit and they will be unable to get by. But they're not alone, either in Western New York nor in the nation as a whole. What we can see is that just under half of all of the jobs in Metro Buffalo are in what we call the low-wage range. That's a job that earns you $0 to $30,000 a year. That is comparable to the nation as a whole, where, again, just under half of all the jobs are in the low-wage range. So we look a lot like the nation right now with all of the ups and downs that that represents. From 2004 on, the number of low-wage jobs in our economy has been increasing. That's the gold bars on the left. Well, the number of mid-range jobs, which is to say those in the $30,000 to $70,000 a year range, have been decreasing. There's also been a slight increase in the number of high-wage jobs. So what this means altogether is that there's been a loss of jobs from the middle part of the spectrum, the wage spectrum, into the extremes, and we have more than we did in the past, a more unequal wage distribution than we used to have. If you take a look at the ladder of income, and this is for the low-wage area, and we begin to put some poverty thresholds on it and also some other wage thresholds on it, you begin to see what's going on in this part of the wage spectrum. So you can see by the size of the household, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, that's what the federally defined poverty level is for that area. I know anyone who's in this room who's trying to raise a family of 5 or a household of 5 on just shy of $26,000 a year probably will question that, and many scholars question those numbers as well, but nonetheless, those are the numbers given out now. You can also see that if you're in New York State working full-time at a minimum wage job, that's $7.25 an hour, that will get you about $15,000, just shy of that. That's what you'll yield, which is just about the poverty level for a household of 2 in the United States. So that's an important consideration there. What's coming up on the screen now are the occupations that are in those median, those average ranges there that are bracketed, if you will, by the poverty lines. And you can begin to see that this is an extraordinarily important number of occupations that make our economy tick. That's fast food cooks and cashiers, hotel clerks, child care workers, security guards, hairstylists, bank tellers, delivery drivers, travel agents, dental assistants, and so forth. We know these people. We are these people. These are all around us. And this is the low-wage economy in Western New York. The bottom line here then on Jobs for Western New York is that 10% of the jobs were in occupations that have a median wage under $18,000, which is the poverty level for a family of 3 or a household of 3. 1 in 4, or 25%, in occupations with median wages under $22,000, the poverty range for a family of 4. And 50%, that's the half, that's the median point, occupations with median wages under just shy of $32,000. So this is the picture, and this is the landscape in which low-wage work occurs. We wanted to take a historical picture. We thought it was extremely important here. And the picture that we'll pick out here for now is, this is a graph from 1930 to the present of the median family income. And there's really 2 stories here. One is the period of extraordinary prosperity between 1940 and 1970. And what happened, these are constant dollars, so these are 2008 dollars. And what happened to the median family income? It was a time when the middle class was growing rapidly. And we come to about 1970, where just about $61,000 a year is the median family income, Western New York. What you can see, and if it feels like you haven't been getting ahead since 1970, it's because you haven't been getting ahead since 1970. It flattens out and stabilizes, and in constant dollars, we're about where we were in 1970. Now, what begins to explain that? Well, here's what doesn't seem to explain it, unless we get very nuanced here. The percentage of females participating in the labor force has been increasing dramatically since 1940 or 1950. We now have 60% of females are in the labor force. They may be paid lower wages, that's true, but it's probably those females that are keeping that from going down over time in terms of constant dollars by shoring up, that's the 2-earner households we're seeing. Also, probably not explaining it is the increases in educational attainment, which have also been dramatic since the 1930s and 40s. You can see what's happened to the percentage of adults with a high school diploma is now around 90%, and those with a bachelor's degree around 27%, both of which are much higher than they used to be in the past. What probably does help explain it, though, and certainly is central to the story of those stagnating, or if you will, stabilized family income levels, is this story. And it's the one that says the percentage of workers in the manufacturing sector has gone straight down. And it's gone straight down because the number of jobs in the manufacturing sector in Western New York has gone straight down since certainly 1950. So we're now at about 12% of our economy there, where it used to be 40%. That change has been in lockstep with, and in fact is effect of, and both probably cause and effect of, the change in the percentage of people who are unionized in the private sector in Western New York. And what the private sector unions did for Western New York was create a middle class and enable people who could go to work for good wages and good benefits who did not necessarily have high educational attainment. What's the upshot of this? Well, for Steve, he can look back at the generations of his family and see that his grandfather, who never graduated from high school, was able to raise a family of 5 and be solidly within the middle class. His father, who did graduate from high school, also goes to work in the manufacturing sector, has quite a bit of private sector support and a social safety net as well. He puts his family of 4 in the solid middle class, whereas Steve and his wife Sarah, each with associate's degrees, barely able to keep their family of 4 afloat. That's our story right now. What we thought in the end we would say is there's much more in the policy brief, and we'll encourage you to go get it. But there are 4 recognitions, we thought, as a way of putting it, that could get us on the same page for imagining the go-forward plan, or at least the way we want to think going forward. The first one is a truism that says economic security affects us all, and therefore it's a shared responsibility, and to a great extent a shared sacrifice. Now, I won't go through these moves, or what if you will, are hands that people have, individuals, employers, civic groups, and governments, but there's a wide range of possible actions to be taken here, and we encourage that there is a shared sacrifice and responsibility to take them. The second recognition, we think, is that all of those actions have trade-offs. There is no one single silver bullet out there, would that there were, for how to deal with a low-wage economy, but in fact the choices that we make will have some positives and may have some also unintended consequences. So that if we stop, let's say, going to restaurants or the movies or getting our hair styled, then we will have an impact on other people in the low-wage economy. The third is a recognition that these are social value choices. Other nations make different choices. We as a nation have made different choices at different points in time. This is a national conversation happening right now with healthcare and other kinds of issues. And the question of whether our safety net is too strong, too weak, or just about right is contentious. And we're currently in a position where people do differ in what their priorities are in that area. And finally, we think that given the conditions of that period of 1940 to 1970, which are so fresh in our mind as the recent past, we may be wanting this to be a time where we think about adjusting expectations, not getting rid of our principles, but at least thinking again about what it means to have progress and what it means to have a good life in Western New York. With that, I will point out simply that the policy brief and more on poverty and other kinds of low-wage work information is on our website at this address, and there also are some cards floating around if you'd like to pick one up. Thank you, and I look forward to the other presentations.